what's the name of the channel again?
Crypto Code.
Okay, right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Code by ICN Live, where we do a weekly live session going over what happened this week in crypto. I have a dear friend, someone new on the show, Tom Purdon. He's a colleague of mine where we work very closely together in the VC and venture capital space, including accelerator programs with Brink. Tom, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool. Probably the coolest setup I've been on. But thanks so much for having me. Just quick intro on myself. I've been at Brink working with Kareem for 2.5 years now. Overseeing quite a few programs right now. Kind of working with Sui Hub in Dubai. Accelerating top 5 really cool startups. We had 630 applicants for the program, and now just working with them on a day-to-day basis to just try and make them succeed and giving them all the support they need. I've been in Web3 since 2020, 2021. I started off kind of trading like everyone did, and that kind of got me interested into what blockchain technology is, what the benefits are, and so saw the kind of like the thesis of banking the unbanked, saw the thesis of identity. 80% of people in the world don't have identity, and blockchain was a solution to that. The ability to also overhaul the financial system in terms of being able to transfer money from one country to another like that. It's crazy how flawed the financial system is when you look at it closer. So that got me really interested, and now that interest got me into venture and working with startups to try and change the way Web3 works, essentially. So super excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I always tell Tom it's awesome that we get to work with early stage startups building really innovative products and services, and we get to see firsthand kind of like what's coming in the future, because we get to see all these people who are thinking really big, and then we get to help them find that money in the investment to kind of really scale their business. So it's a lot of fun. And you mentioned Sui. We have a topic on Sui today that we'll go through. But let's talk about it. I mean, Bitcoin hit its all-time high, $111,000, $861 on May 21st. Insane. Like, what is happening this week? We make a joke that since we've gone live 3 weeks ago, like it's just been green all over the markets, and now Bitcoin has hit its all-time high. What was the price when you got in? What was the first price you got in Bitcoin?
First price I got in, I think, was around like 25K or 30K, which is insane, right?
Yeah,
like
crazy.
It's compared to any asset class, right?
Honestly.
This is the safest in crypto, and it's the one that has grown. It's just insane comparing to anything that we've known before.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, 2017, I thought I saw it at $1,200, and then it went up to 20K, dropped down to, again, I think 2000, and then back up. And like people were always saying it's a scam, and governments were always against it. And now everything has flipped, and it's an amazing time. So it surpassed Amazon's market cap for the first time ever, which is insane. And I don't think we're stopping anytime soon. It is the only asset that depreciates over time, that has a fixed supply. It's not inflationary at all. Even stocks like Apple can issue new shares. So people are starting to understand it, and it's getting easier for everyone to buy it on their phone through their banks nowadays. It's like it's an insane time to be alive, and I think it's just going to keep growing up. Keep going higher. Sorry, and I saw this news. I don't know if you saw it too. This crypto trader opened a $1.1 billion long Bitcoin bet on Hyperliquid using 40x leverage. Like, and what's crazy is that everyone can watch him. Right? You can see it on X. I think his name is, what is his name? James Wynn. Opened a $1.1 billion long position on Bitcoin on Hyperliquid. Apparently, he's sitting on, I think, over $40 million in unrealized profit. Do you play with leveraged trading?
I've done it a few times, but I don't risk it too much. But I'm starting to think that we should just follow it. I mean, as you said, we can follow anything on blockchain. Just follow this guy. He clearly knows something.
He knows something. Yeah, I always wanted to. I never got into leverage trading. I don't know. I guess I'm too conservative. Or maybe also back in like 2019, 2020, I got into degen DeFi stuff, and I was just like, you know what, it's just not for me. So I'm more of a long-term holder. I'll just leave it, and whatever happens in the long term. But I've never done these kind of things. But what's really cool is, like you said, I've seen some of these YouTubers who follow all of these wallets. They track them, see what happens. They have like a private group, and then they can, they do the similar trades and copy them, which is insane. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Pizza Day. It was Pizza Day this week.
Yeah, and yesterday, right?
Yeah. And we were talking about this. We were on one of our workshops where we do marketing strategies for some of these crypto projects. And traditionally, we see all of these projects like going on, having a budget for AMAs, or doing AMAs essentially on Twitter or X, and then getting KOLs. Like a lot of the marketing is skewed towards Telegram and X for these crypto projects. But now I'm starting to see like Coinbase and Binance do creative ads on Instagram and Meta, and going cross-border now into TikTok and all these things. And so I saw a cool one with Binance where they did like in 2010, 2 pizzas. You could have bought 2 pizzas with one Bitcoin. In 2024, 7,100 pizzas, and then this year they're trying to predict like how many pizzas you can buy. Because that guy who was in 2010, yeah, he bought a pizza for 10,000 Bitcoin, was it?
Yeah.
And today that's worth $1 billion, which I'm sure his wife or whoever is probably kicking him right now. But apparently, I did some research on this guy actually. Interesting. So he pioneered Bitcoin's early technical development, creating the first Mac OS client and discovering GPU mining. And to date, he spent over 100,000 BTC on other items, worth over $8.6 billion today. Like, I don't know why anyone would do that. But have you seen these pizza ads all over crypto?
Yeah, I've seen them everywhere. It's crazy.
Day.
It's, every project jumps on it, right? So it's like, it's so funny because Web3 marketing is so different for a lot of projects. You see, there's this project on Sui called Ika. They're kind of like the biggest ones. They raised 21 million. And it's so funny because it's a very technical team. Like, they're all computer scientists. They've all been researching blockchain and cryptography for years. And their marketing is just anime girls. And the marketing for pizza is just like making... And they're called their logo or mascot is a squid. So their marketing is literally just show an anime girl doing a pizza squid and we'll give away $1,000 or so.
But does that work? I don't think it works.
I don't know. No, I think in that sense it's worked pretty well. Like, their community is super active. But then again, like, it's always tough to tell, right? It could be airdrop farmers who are getting excited about it, but then it does appeal to a sort of degen crowds. So
yeah, I was never a fan of these airdrops because people just get the airdrops and then they bounce, and then it's just I'm curious to see how. Hopefully, I think it will evolve. Most businesses would never exist or survive without Meta, Instagram, Facebook. Like, you have to push these kind of ads to get the right clients, and maybe that's a new way of these projects working towards that. So. I mean, it's an interesting space. I completely, I think that founders should be out there talking about their projects rather than being hidden, like the anon kind of thing that they've been doing before. So yeah, I'm interested to see how all of that plays out. So I wanted to go through quickly, which I found a little bit interesting, was the Bitcoin dominance. It tends to happen usually. What we've seen before in other cycles is when Bitcoin hits all-time highs. You see a shift then from Bitcoin all-time highs, then it goes ETH all-time high, and then the altcoin season. So we haven't really seen that altcoin season yet. But if you look at Bitcoin's dominance, I mean, it hasn't really played out that much, minus 1% over the past month. So it's still number one player. Like, it still feels like Bitcoin season, which, as you know, I've been a huge Bitcoin maxi, and like, it's Bitcoin to me and then everything else across. But then if you look at Ethereum, which is interesting, if it loads. Ethereum is doing the opposite. So if you look at Ethereum over the past month alone, it's gone up 26% in terms of its dominance. So this is obviously according to the total market cap of crypto. So it's sitting at 9% right now, which is interesting. Which means there's a lot of hype coming towards ETH. And then if you want to take it to another level, we'll look at the charts, and I like to see from all-time high. And we were discussing this right before we went live. Here we go. So Bitcoin is 1% away from its all-time high. So it actually hit it, because it went back down again, actually. Yeah. So for right now, it's $1,000 from the all-time high that it hit yesterday. And then Ethereum is 46% away from its all-time high, which means if you invest in, if you have Ethereum, it could potentially 2x as a next step. And I think it could potentially get to that level. I think we're going to see Ethereum hit all-time high soon if we follow the similar cycles that have happened before. But I found that interesting. I mean, Bitcoin has been kind of level at its dominance, and Ethereum has been going up. Just wanted to point that out today.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of sort of FUD against Ethereum recently. I still think there aren't enough chains that are big enough to it essentially leads to, the TradFi's movement onto chain. Ethereum still has a very good chance of doing that. It's got the largest liquidity pools by far. Probably still most advanced infrastructure in terms of how long it's been developed for.
Yeah.
Sui and Solana and all those other chains, they're amazing, and tech is going to be amazing, but it's still too far away for the TradFi movement onto chain that we've kind of started to expect.
Yeah, I like what you said there. Ethereum obviously has been around the longest. It's the transactions are slow, they're expensive, getting better obviously, but the issue with Ethereum is if you wanted to build on Ethereum, like there's no tech support, there's no one you can talk to. Whereas with these new ones, Sui and Solana, I think if you wanted to speak with someone, you can actually speak with a human, and they'll help you and build it.
100%.
The tech is faster, it is definitely cheaper. But then there's this whole issue of decentralization versus not, which, you know what, I've been like kind of on the fence anyways. I'm not really like, I never thought Bitcoin should be super anonymous, and like, I always feel like if you're not doing anything shady, then why? I'm kind of the person who prefers to have CCTV around the city. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind my privacy being taken away if there's security instead. So that's just me personally. So yeah, a lot of traditional finance is being built on Ethereum. They have been slower to move with all this new technology coming on. But I have a feeling, obviously, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think it's going to keep getting better and better, and more of the developers are going to bring in new updates as well. So I'm excited to see that. So, but if you continue going down the list here, we look at like XRP is 37% from its all-time high. So there's still so much upside in the altcoins. I mean, what else do we have here? Cardano 74% from its all-time high, and that's a number 9 coin, so it's a top 10 coin. Sui is 28% from its all-time high. Hyperliquid, oddly enough, is above its all-time high, so it's 3% above its all-time high, which is interesting. 100%, well, 97% up in the past 30 days. You could have doubled your money if you had invested in Hyperliquid just a month ago. But I mean, if you look at the last 30 days, it's just green all over, which is really exciting to see. I mean, yeah, very, 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 very cool stuff. So moving on, I wanted to talk about what happened this week. We had Trump's meme coin dinner on May 22nd. I don't know if you've been reading about this, but I think we've discussed this offline before. Like, I don't invest in meme coins. I never believed in them. I don't see any utility. I don't see any fundamentals behind it. But in this case, you have the president of the United States issuing a meme coin. And I was reading this thing from Chris Murphy. I guess he's a politician in the US. He said 40% of Trump's entire net worth is due to these two crypto coins that he just launched months ago. All of this money is going straight into his pocket. He is trading US policy to get paid. So yeah, what are your thoughts on meme coins in general?
Meme coins in general, I mean, it's all a scam, and I thought after the last cycle of meme coins, it kind of died down a bit. And after that died down a bit, I was like, next time it comes back up, I'm not going to get involved. And I don't think it'll be. And then 2 weeks ago, I was just like, everything started going up. And instantly I was like, started looking deep in the trenches for the next gem. So I think it's just playing on the very natural instinct of humans in terms of greed. And it works really well because of that. And that's a big problem with crypto in general. It's just like the ability for people to exit their positions is so easy, and the ability for quick profits because of just the amount of multiples you can make off a 1 hour candle. It's just insane. So very easy for people to profit off greed, and we're seeing that with Trump now, which is crazy. I remember seeing I woke up to Trump at $5, and it was like $5 billion market cap, and I was like, gosh, it's not going to go up more. I'm not going to invest now. Goes up to 60, 12x's from there, and I regretted not buying. But at the same time, it's crazy that you're seeing the president of the strongest nation in the world, the president of the United States, essentially try and profit off people's greed and a hype cycle.
And they have 80% of the token supply. It's like, it's so controlled by a few people. But I'm curious, how do you get, like, do you ever feel FOMO? And if you do, like, where is it that you hear about these new coins? Like, how do you get your information?
Crypto Twitter is a big one. You follow certain people. Obviously, the best way to get it is word of mouth. If someone tells you about something before it kind of pops, that's
so you get
ideal.
influenced by the KOLs.
Not too much, not too much. I did when I started. I feel like a few years ago, KOLs were such a big. People understand the KOLs are essentially trying to use you as exit liquidity now. I think we're seeing a big shift in that sense.
Yeah, it's a good point. Actually, people are learning how to follow those accounts and then wallets and see what they're actually buying and selling ahead of time. Yeah, there's a few people that I actually follow that are really good. But yeah, I mean, back when 2021, when DeFi 2.0 happened, oh my God, I was just like FOMOing into this whole thing. And it was just like, yeah, you live and you learn. All right, I wanted to next talk about the US crypto regulatory update. So there's some interesting things happening. We saw the Genius Act, which was just approved, essentially aiming to regulate stablecoins and provide a framework for digital assets. It never became so clear to me earlier, like whenever we would talk about how RWA is such a hype and everyone's so excited about this space, I never like considered stablecoin. Like I know it is, but it wasn't the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, stablecoins are RWA. It's actually the biggest RWA because you're taking a, currency, cash, liquid cash, and you're just putting it on chain. And I've just gone down this rabbit hole of just how big stablecoins are getting and how big they are today. A lot of the projects we deal with actually at Brink and these accelerator programs, we don't see that many, I don't know, like stablecoin. For me, dollar is dollar. I don't. Other currencies don't make any sense, but we don't really see any of these stablecoin startups are doing something interesting in that space, which is surprising.
I think that's partly because you have to have such a regulatory advantage. Like you need to know the right people to properly launch a stablecoin.
Yeah, but not to issue. I mean, and just I hear what you're saying, but like not to issue one, but to use it in a cool way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Have you seen any over the years?
Yeah. So no, I went down the rabbit hole of stablecoins. So essentially, what they want to do is stablecoin issuers have to like put a collateral, so have to be so they don't run away with your money, which is I think what Vara anyways here does with all these exchanges. You have to like put down a huge amount of money just to make sure that no one gets hurt, and then more than that is the market. I was looking at the numbers. So stablecoin in 2020, the market cap of the entire stablecoin industry was only $20 billion. Today it's $250 billion. I was watching a video with these YouTube video with these experts talking about this. They predict that the stablecoin, US dollar stablecoin alone, will be a $2 trillion market cap by 2028. Today, the stablecoin issuers, so Tether, USDC, I don't know if Trump's USD1 is counted, but there's a bunch of them now. But they own $120 billion worth of treasury bills, so US debt. They're becoming one of the largest clients of US debt. And obviously the US Treasury, like they like that because they have someone to buy it now. And it helps keep the US dollar strong because they're using US dollars as a currency. So the forecast is that it'll increase to about $1 trillion by 2028, making them a huge client now because I think they've issued $6 trillion worth of treasury, of bills, of debt. $1 trillion by 2028 will be just from stablecoin issuers, US dollar stablecoin issuers. So that's the reason why I believe, and many others also believe, that Trump, the Fed, the United States government is like, hey guys, we need to actually like own this because these guys are buying our debt, which is helping us pay off the stuff that we have to pay off for, which is insane. So yeah, the key takeaway from this act and regulation in general is that the government wants to be able to freeze any account of that's doing something bad. So it's quite centralized. Even today, I think Tether can freeze your USDT if they think that you've done something bad with it, and USDC for sure. But it's not going anywhere. It's getting bigger, and then there's a huge correlation between the number of stablecoins issued and the price of Bitcoin, because it becomes very easy to trade into different assets and especially Bitcoin. So I found that fascinating, and I was just curious how we've seen between all the startups that we've kind of gone through, like 150 plus. I didn't see that many. You see a lot of guys trying to do Bitcoin, something with Bitcoin, but not much around stablecoin. We do have an accelerator program that's about to launch with IDA, which is a Hong Kong dollar stablecoin, which is exciting. But I don't know. What any thoughts on?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what do you think of stablecoins being backed by the US dollar, essentially. It kind of goes against the principles of decentralization, right? Like, in my opinion, I kind of think a gold-backed stablecoin would be really cool.
Yeah, or
gold
yeah,
price-backed.
I think what's interesting is it's becoming very easy for someone who, like you said, bankless, someone in poorer countries that needs to transfer a currency that does not fluctuate that much, especially like in countries like Lebanon, countries like Argentina, where I can literally get on an app, have some currency that I know is going to stay the same, although it is devaluating over time. But that's so powerful, and I think that's why crypto adoption has happened so fast. Is if you look at the profits of Tether, like these guys are minting money. It's crazy. So for me, it was just like I would love to see more projects building around. Like imagine creating a solar farm, sharing the revenue with that in stablecoin, maybe also owning some treasury bills and some debt to give out 4% interest, on an annual like stable. So you have like a hybrid of interest rates, give back, profit sharing on like huge projects. So then governments, like the UK government, the US government, doesn't have to issue more taxes to build these infrastructure projects. They could do it like this on chain, build highways, build tolls. But then you as a stakeholder could get paid out. Like that's super cool. And then
that's a really cool point,
right?
Yeah.
Like it could be instead of lowering taxes and doing these kind of things, I was thinking it could be cool.
Instead of having a native token and paying out in native tokens, why not just pay out in a stable coin? Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And governments can control it.
Exactly.
As long as you own that, like it could be an NFT if you want to call it that, but it could be like anything. If you own this asset on chain, whoever owns it at any given time starts reaping those dividends and interest you could do it even like in an hourly basis, in a monthly basis. You could do it like as it comes in, which is super interesting. So there's so much that can be done with stable coins. And going back to tying to the green markets and what's happening is there's a direct correlation between how much stable coin are on chain and the price of Bitcoin, for example. And right now we've never seen more stable coins, on chain, and that's probably why we're seeing Bitcoin price so high, as well as obviously the ETFs and institutional investors, all these pension funds, all these retirement funds, all of them being able now to buy Bitcoin ETFs very easily. Yeah. So yeah.
I still think like a gold-backed stablecoin, that'd be awesome.
But gold has been crushing it. If you had invested in gold in like 2 years ago, you'd be absolutely killing it.
100%.
My only issue with gold is like, how do we know how much there is? Like,
yeah, that is a big issue as well. And then like imagine the treasury or wherever it's stored. Because it's always with custodians, you can't make it non-custodial. It has to be stored somewhere. And then if somehow whether it was like the place it was stored was taken over or it was somehow robbed, how do we actually track that? Like, how do you actually tokenize gold and keep it on chain? Like, there's no real way to prove it.
And then even if I had tokenized gold in my wallet, I don't think there's many like I couldn't go to a car dealership and be like, hey, I want to buy this car with gold. Would you take my gold? In Bitcoin, they'll be like, yeah, fine, I'll take your Bitcoin. I'll take your Ethereum. Even I think the top 10, no one has an issue with to pay for things, which is interesting. Cool. I wanted to move on now, since we're kind of in the same topic, is Kraken is about to offer tokenized US stocks, first to non-US clients. I think that's always the case. But Kraken, through a partnership with Bakkt, will offer the product on the Solana blockchain. We should talk to our friend Alex Scott about this. RWA tokenization is gaining traction among brokerages, exchanges, and firms due to several key advantages. It reduces upfront costs by minimizing reliance on traditional finance infrastructure. Additionally, tokenization helps democratize access to investment opportunities, enabling retail investors to participate in markets that were previously limited to accredited investors. So they're putting basically Apple shares, Amazon, Tesla, all of these on chain, so you could trade them 24/7. But then I'm still curious to is it necessary? I don't know. Like,
I think the idea is if everything does end up on chain, then it will be. But like right now, is it easier to trade stocks on Solana?
It's
Probably
so easy
not,
with
right?
Robinhood,
Exactly,
eToro, all of these platforms.
But
So
it's a move in the right direction, right? In terms of like, if the whole financial system does shift to on-chain, and
that's
maybe
a good
Robinhood.
point. Yeah, that's a good point. If you tokenize, if it's from the Wall Street level,
Yeah.
where they tokenize everything on the Nasdaq from their side, and then it's 24-hour trading instead of like the market opens, market closes.
Which is crazy. It's
what
crazy
time
that's still,
does the
that's
market
how it
close?
works.
Yeah, it's crazy to us who invest in the crypto space because we're like, this is 24/7. You know, crypto has no time to sleep. But then you look at like, the markets are like, oh, I wonder what after hours are going to be, and then
like on a Friday being like, oh, I wonder what the market's going to do on Monday.
Yeah.
Like closes for 48 hours. It's insane.
It's like, what are you guys doing? Honestly, yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, I mean, definitely following the news, see what happens there. If it does get more investors on it, then that could probably help these public companies as well. So that's interesting. Next up, I saw the news around FIFA teams up with Avalanche to build its own blockchain, expanding Web3 ambition. Is this bullish? What do you think about this? I have my own thoughts.
I think it's interesting. I don't think like we're really there yet in terms of. I've seen a bunch of people try and obviously football fans who are in Web3 try and create use cases for Web3 in football, and obviously it's huge in terms of the amount of users who might come in through that, who might want to buy a collectible of FIFA of a certain country, of the World Cup, who might see an NFT and that might be their entry point into Web3. So we might see some user adoption. I still think like the use case isn't that clearly defined. How is FIFA going to use blockchain in a way that's actually meaningful beyond actually, like collectibles and trading cards and whatever else? Obviously, again, like all of these things, they're small moves and they're moves in the right direction. It means they're open to adoption. But to shift to a huge organization like FIFA and actually make it adopt crypto and Web3 and blockchain principles, we're probably still a few years off, is my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think like news like this back in the day would have probably like made Avalanche's price go up higher. Today, I think we've discussed this also offline. It's like there's just way too many layer one chains. Like how many in traditional internet, like how many AWSs and cloud service providers do you actually need? And in reality, what are the biggest ones? What, Azure, Google, AWS, those three, I guess, right? Maybe I'm missing a few, but that's it. I mean, three at the end of the day. So in our space, I think what will happen is it's just going to be behind the scenes. You're not going to know what chain you're on. It doesn't matter. You're going to get an email with your collectible in it. You're going to know how rare your collectible is. And yeah, it's just going to be very easy to trade, and that's it. But is this bullish for like the Avalanche chain? I don't think it's going to actually affect the price that much anymore. There's just so much going on. There's so much liquidity across this whole entire thing. I mean, to think that Bitcoin was once the only coin and had 100% of obviously market share. Now it has 63%, and the rest 9% is Ethereum, and the rest is split among all the others. I think USDT has 4%, XRP is 4%. So you're talking like once you get to Sui, which is number 11 on the list, by the way, or let's say Dogecoin, which is a meme coin, that has 1% market share. Sui has 0.36%, and it's number 11. Yeah, it's top 10 if you remove. You see, there's so much liquidity that's just moving around, washing around, but it's very little compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum.
I think that was one of the crazy stats that came out last year. Like the number of tokens in existence, something like 100x last year.
It's like 50 million.
In large part because of meme coins.
Yeah, because of Pump.fun and virtual protocol and
exactly. Yeah,
it's way too much.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So we all agree news like this would have been big back in the day. Today,
I think there's still potential like things that could be big. Like for example, if ticketing went on chain, like we're getting to a point now where it'd be simple enough for a wallet to be created in the back end.
Yeah.
Users to just essentially use a traditional payment system like MoonPay, and buy the ticket and have it stored on blockchain. I think that could very quickly happen, and that would be a pretty big use case. Essentially, every game, you'd essentially have for a big stadium 65k transactions, and it'd be scanned on chain and everything, and the verifiability obviously would be a big thing. So I think there could be cool things that come out of the partnership. It just depends on how quickly FIFA decides to actually implement those changes, and with such large organizations, saying that they want to go into blockchain is one thing. Them actually doing it, let's see how long it takes.
Yeah, and I think, but just as a viewer, when you see like an announcement like this, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean the price is going to go up anymore, because we're just gonna. I mean, we're naturally going into this place. Which chain it's on is going to be irrelevant. It doesn't really matter, and unless you got really got in early or just buy and hold for a long time, it's just not market. It's not market moving news anymore in terms of announcements like this. On the other hand, there are some market moving announcements. We're going to go into like the dark side of what happened this week. So not everything is great. Some things have been bad. So the first one is Sui's biggest liquidity provider, Cetus. I think I'm saying that right. Hit by a $260 million hack. But what's interesting in this case is they were able to stop most of it. And we'll talk about that as well. So what do you know about it?
So I have the pleasure of working with some people who are obviously much more deeply integrated into the technology of Sui and how everything works. And essentially, my understanding is there was one line that was an issue in the whole code of Cetus, and they managed to exploit it. They managed to find it. I think that the issue was it was copied from a standard base of code from a EVM contract, and it just didn't work that well on the Move language. And it's crazy because these exploiters, they'll go off anything. There was probably one weakness in the whole ecosystem, and they managed to identify it in no time. Obviously, it's huge from my understanding. Firstly, Sui handled it really well. We haven't heard too much from Cetus. I imagine that's because the CEOs and everyone aren't as well trained on PR crisis management. Sui, on the other hand, all the founders kind of went on reassured everyone everything's going to be sorted. And as a result, I think we've seen the price action not drop too much on Sui. It's been pretty decent. Like it's been very resilient, which is great. I would say this is partly, likely linked to market makers and kind of keeping the price up. But still, I mean, it's been an amazing reaction overall by Sui, I'd say. Apparently, we're almost there in terms of this is something a lot about as well, in terms of they managed to isolate the funds, and I think they'll be able to recover most of it.
But tell everyone why that is. How were they able to do that?
Well, essentially,
because you can't do that on Ethereum.
No, you can't do that. Yeah, and that's the crazy part, where we're kind of seeing decentralized systems not be that decentralized, the ability to freeze funds on chain. And essentially, I think what happens is, and I'm not too technical, but they isolated one of the validators, and that way the address who essentially drains all the liquidity pools on Cetus was not able to trade off and off-ramp it onto... they wanted to trade it into ETH and put it into Tornado Cash. They weren't able to do that because Sui and essentially just their amazing tech team managed to isolate it. But it kind of goes against the principles of decentralization, right? So you kind of get to a point... It's a bit of a conundrum, because I don't really know what I'd prefer, whether it be for the funds to go and decentralization principles to be maintained, or is it at the end of the day, we're pretty grateful that the funds are going to be returned and a lot of people aren't going to lose their money. So it's really tough to where do you find the balance? No,
I completely agree. And I think just to put it in context, Bitcoin miners are all over the world. You can't really convince a majority of them to do anything. Ethereum is the same. So you have all these nodes and validators on chain that are just so decentralized. And I think that's how the regulatory shift is happening, is if it is that decentralized like Bitcoin, which is now a commodity essentially because you cannot control it. Ethereum is pretty much also, I would say, at that level. However, when you look at the Suis, maybe even the Tezos, maybe even, I don't know about Solana, to be honest with you, but the number of validators isn't in the millions or in the, maybe it's in the low thousands. I think I'm assuming on Sui, it's probably even in the hundreds or the tens. I don't know, but that's usually the case. And the benefit of that is speed, low cost, blah, blah, blah. The negative of that, if you are a crypto enthusiast and decentral enthusiast, is they could manipulate something and take something away. In this case, it was used for good, which is fantastic. And they were able to, so out of 223 million or 260 million, 162 million of the compromised funds have been successfully paused, which is fantastic. And I think that's why we haven't seen the price really drop that much, which is great. So as you said, pros and cons. In this case, great. It's a great thing. I think like most people are just afraid of, in traditional finance with banks, they've frozen like accounts of people who speak out against the government or, things like that, where they can just take away your money for speaking something that, they don't want you to say. And then that's why kind of crypto also came about. And it's like to take back your own control, own what you have. So yeah, I mean, but listen, if you want that, you get Bitcoin and Ethereum. And if you want something that's faster, cheaper, and more secure, or more, faster, cheaper, I guess you can go with another chain.
And the other thing is, at these early stages of adoption, we really don't need a story where the wallets get drained of, or Cetus gets drained of 220 million, and that money is just gone. And it's that's a crazy amount of money, and it would do a huge amount against the industry we're working towards creating. So it's. I'm glad they did it. At the same time, it does kind of pave a way to government control of on-chain, activities, which is.
But I have a question now. Every event we go to, you meet these people who are they audit the code. Like, where are these people? And especially like $260 million, you would assume you would have great auditors to check the code or like. So I don't understand. I'm really like, how many people at every conference we meet, like 3 of these people who are like, yeah, that's what we do. We audit chains.
It's because they're spending all their money on BD people rather than actual auditors.
Oh my God. Remember that the presentation we saw at one of the demo days where the guy was like, oh, we also offer a bodyguard with the, so funny. Okay. So more on the story actually, which was quite interesting, is they have identified the Ethereum wallet controlled by the hacker responsible for the exploit, reached out to negotiate the return of customer funds, and they have offered a time-sensitive white hat settlement. So they're doing this in collaboration with the authorities. That if you return everything, return the balance to us, to Sui and Cetus, they will not press any charges. So should the hacker accept our terms, we would also refrain from pursuing further legal action. So I think instead of these code audits, is like this whole white hacker community is just, like you should just do bounties and have people come in. But even then, like, it's so annoying that this keeps happening. And I guess, I mean, back in the day, there were always bank robberies. People would go in and, with a gun and steal people's money. But then, the banks had to return it. So
that's the thing, though. You never hear about these in TradFi, right? You never hear about your bank being hacked for 225 million. Obviously, it does happen, but like
not anymore. But I'm sure it did back in the day.
Probably, yeah. But is it just? There's kind of 2 potential reasons. Either they're not disclosing the fact that banks get hacked and obviously the government bails them out, or they just have enough funds that they can kind of maintain this. And obviously disclosing it would cause a bank run and it'd be a huge issue.
Yeah.
The other side of it is probably just the technology's been around for so long that they've managed to prove it. And I imagine they spent a ridiculous amount on cybersecurity and just making sure that it's unhackable.
But even then, look at Bybit. They had someone came in, Lazarus, North Korea came in and tricked them into sending all that ETH. Yeah. How do they have... These numbers are crazy, by the way. Like $260 million, you and I are just talking about it like it's nothing. Like it's a protocol called Cetus that I didn't know about until recently. And it's not even a household name, but like $260 million is just like floating around into some DeFi SUI ecosystem. And there's more of these. There's hundreds of these.
It's probably a very good case study of having to need more like liquidity providers and split that liquidity between all of them, because this is obviously the biggest liquidity provider on Sui, which is a growing chain, which means that whatever value is there is obviously going to grow. We need more for it to be split across more and maybe compartmentalized, so that we don't have these issues. I mean, it's crazy that much funding and that much liquidity was just in one place, and for like essentially what was a startup.
You think this is all like being secured with like ledger devices and like, hardware devices that cost like $200?
Yeah.
And then you need like multi-signatories. Even then, you can get tricked. I always feel like there's someone on the inside that knows something and kind of like, it's like even in bank robberies, there's like someone that would say, okay, at 9 a.m. they do this, at 7 p.m. they do this.
There
Like,
almost
it
has
has
to be
to
someone,
be.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has
Someone
to
building
be.
the code leaves a little mistake in there, and 2 years later reveals it.
Absolutely. It's like
bad
when there's a
actors.
murder in the house, it's like it's always the husband or the wife
Yeah.
for the primary suspects. Okay, going on to some more terrible news. Violent crypto robbers on the rise. 6 attacks, I think, this month alone that targeted investors. So the founder of crypto wallet Ledger, David Balland, and his wife, Amandine, were kidnapped from their home on January 21st. So that was a while back. But there was also that footage you saw. I don't know if you saw that one in Paris.
Yeah.
Where they tried to kidnap this.
I think it was Bybit's CEO's daughter or something, or one of the exchanges.
Broad
CEO's
daylight.
daughters. Yeah. Terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we can say about that. It's terrible. I don't know how I mean, that's also an issue about talking about how much money you have, and like, you should always be careful. Don't show your wallet addresses, because even if you do have a ledger and you have your phone, you can be compromised, and it's just not worth it. It's like wearing a nice watch in London. It's just something you just shouldn't do anymore.
100%. Yeah.
All right.
I don't even know how that happens, right? Like that's. Did she not have security guards around her? Is there like there must be some precautions when you're.
How do they know where she was and who she was? And
Exactly.
It's insane.
Again, probably inside job.
Yeah, 100% probably an inside job. Yeah. The next one I had was, I guess, good news. SafeMoon CEO, I remember when this came out, by the way. SafeMoon CEO Braden Coroni has been found guilty of securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, facing 45 years in prison. The U.S., they don't joke around, man. It's like 20 years minimum for any of this stuff. This guy's getting 45 years in prison. Yeah. What are your thoughts on rug pulls, safe, like...
I'm glad because I bought SafeMoon at the top.
Yeah, you bought it at the top?
All those, I think it was like 2021 or 2020.
Yeah, I think it was that time.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, but like I bought it at the top, and then pretty much like 3-4 days later it crashed. So I'm glad he's getting some justice. I feel like...
That's a good point. There was a lot of projects that I got into back in 2021 that I think those guys are just walking around now completely free. There was a whole DeFi 2.0 with Wonderland and Olympus DAO. And these guys, and I think this is similar to what happened to another project that I probably shouldn't even talk about, so I'm not going to name them. But I think when you see some of these rug pulls and they claim that... I took a collateral against my crypto, and then that crypto, which is not a big one, it's one of theirs own, the price went down, they defaulted and whatever. And they're like, oh, but I also lost. But it's like, in reality, you actually borrowed against it with USDT or a stablecoin. So that's now more valuable than this Fugazi coin that we talk about. Yeah. So I think I think eventually this will catch up with the people who have done that, where they've built this coin to become something, obviously through marketing, KOLs and all that stuff. And then we're able to borrow against it and then be like, oh my God, the price went down. It wasn't my fault. I got liquidated. But in reality, you kind of, instead of selling, you did it in another way, which is not that cool.
Yeah, but it just goes to show, like, this is crypto is obviously one of the most free markets that you could ever make, right? And the ability for bad actors to therefore profit off it is immense. Like, and that's why we probably do need some regulation, because otherwise we're just going to have many more years of bad actors being able to profit very quickly. And as you said, like, because of regulation, we're probably going to start seeing less and less of this, because there's going to be repercussions for essentially scamming people.
We've worked with like over 150 founders in this space, and we've started actually during I think with you, it was in the bear market. So we had a lot of
deep in the bear market.
Yeah, deep in the bear market, where we had a lot of amazing projects who actually had, good fundamentals in tech. And everyone at that time was saying, we're not going to launch our token because it's not a good time to launch our token. And now we're at a point where it's like, I think this is probably the best time to launch your token, but they're still not launching their token. What is the consensus that you're seeing with these projects that you work with? Are they going to launch the token? Like, what's the plan?
I think the issue is now people just wait for the perfect moment, right? So they're just waiting for something to happen, and we don't know what that thing is.
More than this?
Exactly,
all-time high Bitcoin?
Yeah. And last year there was an awesome like altcoin movement towards the start of the year, and it's just like, you're probably never going to... obviously, if you want a quick profit, then try and time the market and exit as quickly as possible. But if you're actually trying to build something, why wait? Just launch it, and then when the next kind of like run happens, just make sure you're positioned and marketing and doing all the things you need to, acquiring users. And that's probably what we're going to see. There's so many tokens now. You probably need to move towards fundamentals of user acquisition, getting revenue, depending less on price action of your token. That's a huge issue we're seeing right now.
I have a very clear opinion on this as well. Like the valuations that these companies are asking for sometimes is just ridiculous. I don't get it. Like the sales does not justify it. And then they wonder why once they launch the token, things just don't look so great. And I call it the Burj Khalifa, where it goes up and then down. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll get there where it's people are going to realize like you can't be like, why are you $30 million off the gate? Yeah. How? Like under what? You have no sales.
What company IPOs of $30 million?
Actually, this is interesting. I like this. When you look at companies that IPO on the Nasdaq, the traditional look at is basically if they get to $100 million in revenue. So that's like the milestone. If a company at like a e-commerce, whatever brand or anything gets $100 million, that's traditionally the time where they start considering going IPO. Obviously in Web3, that's not the case. There's no way. I've met very few startups that have done $100 million in sales. Number one, I don't think I've met that many who've done, I don't know, $10 million in sales annually. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's something that's really still an issue in our industry is these high valuations. We see it also in AI now. Previously, before that, you saw it in Beyond Meat and all this like alternative beef burgers. Like the valuations of these companies went so high. But in reality, once you start going to market, selling and doing this, and then you realize, oh shit, I haven't sold that much, then the valuation just, the markets talk, supply and demand, they look at fundamentals, and then that's the issue, and that's the case. So yeah, that's something that I've always had an issue with. So what I like to do towards the end of this live is go through some of the watch lists. So before I do that, while I do that, what is exciting you in the crypto space in terms of like AI, gaming?
So I've been exposed to, I think for me, DeFi and DeFi AI is probably the most exciting. I've been exposed to Sui ecosystem for a few months more deeply now. And I think something I'm super excited about is BTC-Fi. The ability to actually earn yields off your Bitcoin or be able to lend it or actually do something with it rather than just it being a sort of gold standard for crypto. I think that's something that's super exciting, especially on Sui. And I've spoken to a lot of people about this in terms of every chain kind of needs that catalyst. For Solana, it was DeFi season followed by Memecoin season. We saw a huge amount of user acquisition Solana through that. For Base, Virtuals was kind of that recently. And every chain has kind of had that catalyst. Ethereum, DeFi summer was huge. I think probably for Sui, it's going to be BTC-Fi in terms of with the new technology EKIT that's going to be launching there. Being able to control Bitcoin from the Sui chain, it's huge potential. I mean, the market potential for, when you think about the market cap of Bitcoin, even if a small portion of that goes into sort of DeFi activities in terms of lending, in terms of all these things are now available. And that's something I'm super excited about. Beyond that, I think copy trading is going to make a big comeback. I think in DeFi.
I actually have an idea for this, but really? No, I'm not going to talk about it today. But I think copy trading is super interesting. But I have another way of doing it. Yeah, because I'm not a trader. Like exactly that stress, I don't need that stress. I don't care anymore. It's like invest what you have and you don't need, and just leave it. And I don't care anymore. I wasn't like this before. I was super stressed out all the time. But the BTC like yields, like where's the yields? Like where are the yields coming from? For me, it's what I've met. I've met a lot of investors who like they own BTC, then they borrow 20% against it in USDT, buy more BTC. Then it's like, okay, now I have more BTC, but then I can pay back the USDT over time. But at least I don't sell my BTC. So that's interesting. Okay, so the watch list, the OGs we've kind of gone over today. These are essentially everything except for the stable coins. And again, I mean, the past 30 days have been awesome. It's all green across the markets. I'm trying to see if there's any outliers here, actually. Let's see, like, what's the big... OG, cool. That's what we saw. All right, so let's go into the watch list that we've talked about, some of these different industries and categories. Let's go into see how gaming is doing, actually.
Gaming is actually an exciting one. I feel like the hype went away, but like the fundamentals are still there. There's still a use case for it. It's just the games that are being built on chain are still not the best.
I want to see GTA. For me, apparently that's some of the rumors. They're like that's why they think they're delaying GTA 6 is just so that they can potentially put it on chain, because now they're seeing the regulations and are you gonna open?
I wonder if any of the games that were built on chain a few years ago have made it. Like,
well, Off the Grid just came out now.
Yeah,
check the token on Off the Grid, because since this computer is just not behaving the way it should be. Oh, there it is. Okay, so gaming is here. Still, man, the gaming, like from all-time highs, like 90%, 80%. YGG is minus 98% from its all-time high. Damn. Sandbox, minus 96% from its all-time high. Oh, here's Gunzilla. I found it. Gun is minus 54% from all-time high. So this launched recently. This is the Gunzilla token. Market cap of 42 million. And that's Gunzilla. And then you have some of these startups that come in and asking for $30 million. Ridiculous. All right, so that's gaming. Sorry, guys, my computer is like a little bit laggy.
That's a real point. Yeah, if Gunzilla isn't performing, like, how are you expecting your game to be valued at 100 million?
And I always make that point. I always say, like, I sell more ice cream than you have done anything, and you're still valuing your company at that much. Okay, I think this is just not going to. So yeah, I can't wait for GTA 6. I think it's going to be extraordinary. The trailer was amazing. You know what? Let's go into Made in the USA. I think is a huge theme that's going to happen. Or let's go into Made in the USA. All right, so we have Artificial Superintelligence Alliance is the best so far, 48% the past month. Sui is in there. I mean, yeah, there's so much potential here because from all-time high, you're like looking at like 70%, 80%. Avalanche is $121 from its all-time high, but I don't think it's ever going to hit that again. All right, I think we can see the same theme across all. It's just green. All over.
It's nice to see after a long bear market.
Yeah, when we started the program, I remember it was like the end of the last bull market. Everyone was so excited, and then we went to a deep bear market where everyone's like, I'm just building. I'll launch my token when the next bull market hits. And now that it's here, people are still like hesitant on when to launch it. So yeah,
I think part of the issue is probably they just ran out of runway and now just don't have the money to market properly and to pay.
But that's why you issue a token. Oh, that annoys me. This whole mafia and the exchanges, how much you have to pay to get listed. But back in the day, Uniswap was a great place to list. Like it was like kind of like the Kickstarter of Indiegogo of projects, where it's like you just created your own liquidity pool. People then who believed in it also created a liquidity pool. Just do it on a DEX, and that was a great place to start. Launch.
That's really how it should be, and that's probably why now people launch from Binance and go straight the best possible centralized exchange and go straight down. Like there's no belief in it beforehand, and people don't sort of validate the idea. And Solana has done really well off that. Essentially, just having a really strong community that built it off $7 all the way to what it is. All the way to $250 all-time high. Like that's real belief, and that's what we kind of lack now in the ecosystem.
No, that's a great point. And then back in 2017, 18, it was basically all these layer ones coming out at the same time, and they're like, yeah, we're going to change everything. Ethereum, Solana, Tezos, all of these were coming out at the same time. So those are the biggest projects because that had the most utility. Today, it's like, how do you gain a community and an ecosystem around this project if it's something? Then going onto a DEX and trying to list your token, it's not as easy as before. You're obviously fighting for that attention, and marketing is not. Yeah, so you have to, number one, build an amazing product that people talk about that they want, and then from there, I guess it makes sense to, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Tom. It's been a great one. Thank you to everyone who made it today. We'll be back next week. A lot happening in the space, so make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for being here, guys.